Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining this afternoon's Cuppa Club with Susie Ackford, Mustard Seed Property Director, Adam Langer, Mustard Seed Property Director and CEO of Newquay Lighthouse Project, and Ben Wrigley, Senior Investment Manager from Resonance. My name's Paul Pizzala, and I'm the Senior Investment Manager at FX, working with the team on Mustard Seed's community share offer. So before we get started, there's some housekeeping to do. I'd like to let you know that the Cuppa Club is recorded and available to watch with highlights. This isn't a financial promotion. And if you do need any advice, please talk to an independent financial advisor. The Cuppa Club usually runs for 30 to 45 minutes, and really, it's a fantastic opportunity to meet the directors and hear about why Mustard Seed Property is such an impactful organisation, how they aim to achieve their goals, what your investment is funding, and the challenges and the opportunities. So please do feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and we'll take those as we go along. Before Susie, Adam and Ben introduce themselves, let's start by mentioning that the community share offer from Mustard Seed is now live on the FX platform. It's well past its minimum offer amount. The funding is funding the next two properties that Mustard Seed wants to buy and refurbish for its partners in Cornwall, and will also be used to replace some debt raised to help fund the redevelopment of the third property owned by Mustard Seed. So that will all become evident as we go through the webinar. So to kick off, Susie, Adam, and Ben will start to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Susie Ackford. I've got my cuppa, and I thank you all for being interested and hopefully wanting to support some of the most vulnerable people in Cornwall. I moved to Cornwall 5 years ago, having sold a business, and I now work with people and organisations creating a sustainable future, both environmentally and socially. So when I was approached by Mustard Seed, who were buying and renovating a property to provide homes for some of those less fortunate, I jumped at the chance to become a director and a shareholder.
Brilliant. Thank you, Susie.
Hi, everyone. My name's Adam. I'm the CEO of the Lighthouse Projects and partner director for Mustard Seed Property. I'm also someone 25 years ago, I had a drug problem, and without going into huge detail, we've had sort of more than half of the rehabs in the UK shut down. We have a severe housing problem for vulnerable people, and the lighthouses are a model of using very limited funds to provide as near as we can to the equivalent of drug treatment, but actually it's supported housing. We stay inside the boundaries of supported housing, and Mustard Seed have been amazing in providing us with a lovely 11-bedroom house in Newquay, and I want to tell you more about that in a little while. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. Over to you, Ben.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ben Wrigley. I'm a Senior Investment Manager at Resonance Limited. We're a social impact investment company based out of Cornwall, but operating nationwide.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I turn the first question over to Susie. Can you give us an overview of Mustard Seed Property and set the scene for your community share offer? In particular, how does the model work for MSP's charity and social enterprise partners?
Gosh, there's lots of questions in there. I mean, sadly, there is a need for the most vulnerable in society for houses. We don't have enough housing, and Cornwall is one of the poorest areas, despite we've got lovely second homes. But that pushes up the prices of the houses, which again means that people can't afford housing. So Mustard Seed set up, I believe, in 2007. And it was the community were concerned that how would their children with learning difficulties ever be able to afford homes? And really that was how Mustard Seed was born. And we're now just completing our third house for those very people. And at the last AGM, we saw a picture of Ted. Now, Ted is a young man with profound learning difficulties, and he never hoped that he'd be able to have a key to his own front door and his own home. And this is, you know, the most wonderful opportunity for him. So we're supported in that house by Carrick and United Response, who are partners who support their clients in being able to live great lives. We also work with St Petrock's, who have our first home. They've looked after 1,000 homeless people over the last year. Now, our house has helped maybe 40 people, but that's 40 people who would have been on the streets. And they are our partner, and they are looking for many more houses. And then, of course, Newquay Lighthouse and the wonderful Adam, and he can tell you about that.
Okay.
Hopefully, Adam.
Yeah, I was wondering whether I'd be introduced. So in sometime about 2020, before lockdown, before the first lockdown, I was invited to kind of come and present what I do to Mustard Seed Properties, and we bought a building, found a suitable building in 2021, and we opened our doors in June of 22. And what we do is support people who are homeless and who have drug and alcohol problems, and who are capable of sustaining themselves in the community. So there's a dividing line between whether people need rehab or not, and we have to be careful with that. And sorry, I'm just finding myself in a little problem there. We have a community of people, all of them are seeking, complete recovery, no drugs or alcohol, really turning their lives around. They form a mutual aid community where they help each other, and they go to NA and AA meetings, and they do well. So just to give you some sort of personal stories, so Ed's been with us for 14 months. He's 14 months clean. He's training as a counsellor. Dylan's been with us for 2 years. You know, he's been in and out of prisons and rehabs. He's just come back from a holiday in France. He's doing incredibly well. Tom was with us for 14 months. He's just moved out. He started training in animal husbandry. And just to give you some idea, cut marks and burns up and down his arms. And I could go on that, sort of the staff that we have, our 2 support workers, were residents in our Bideford project. They've both done basic trainings in counselling. Scott is going on to do his degree in counselling now in psychotherapy. And so we're getting real outcomes. And in terms of our value to the community, so the government statistics on people with drug problems, so a heroin addict costs the state about £40,000 a year. Each person we keep clean, just in the time they're with us, we save the state £40,000, and then they go on and contribute every year they stay clean. They're not costing that, then they're paying taxes, and there's all of that, as well as the kind of personal stories in it. So so we've paid off coming up for £15,000 of our startup capital, and in terms of Mustard Seeds, the people come in to a really lovely building, and it makes them feel valued. It makes them sort of believe in their own journeys, and that is just so valuable. They lovely sea views from their rooms, and we need more of this. Yeah, I think that'll do.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, you've got a real sense of giving people, an opportunity to turn their lives around. And I imagine you have some, tremendous staff involved in the operation as well, who kind of make all the difference.
And actually, we're very careful to choose staff who've got either direct experience or very close experience of working with addiction. They are passionate about what they do. My biggest problem is telling them to go home. It's they go the extra mile. They work from their hearts, and yeah, and um, and up till very recently, I've been able to say, and we still have our original staff team in place. We've just had one of our support workers, Paul, has moved on to work for another organisation in a really positive way. And we have someone coming in who's replacing him, who was running a CIC for climbing and for vulnerable people, and he looks perfect for us as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And of course, we don't need to talk about the the straitened circumstances in which we live, and how over the past 10 years or so the welfare nets, the holes have got larger. So I'm imagining that more people fall through that, not necessarily through any fault of their own. And I'm sort of interested to pick up on that point. Maybe you can develop that point a little bit, Susie, to give the audience a greater appreciation of why there is such a great need for affordable housing for vulnerable people, specifically in Cornwall, and give us a bit of maybe a bit of an insight into how MSP seeks to tackle that. How do you find how do they come to your door? How do you look after them? How do they leave your door? Is there a pastoral care afterwards? Maybe give us a bit of colour about that, please.
Okay, I might just answer that in a slightly different way, because I mean, listening to Adam is the partner that really drives the success stories. And what I realized was having a roof is really important, but it's not just any roof. So a lot of people are put into hotels or bed and breakfast, but that's not going to make them feel valued. So that's really where I think Mustard Seed is so different. We choose our partners who are going to make these people feel valued. What we do is we find beautiful houses and we renovate them to be really nice homes, so that people feel, hey, actually, I'm going to invest in myself. If people have invested in me and put me into this beautiful place, and they're surrounding me by great support networks, I'm actually going to, pull myself up. And the success stories, as Adam said, and as Petrox talk about, are far greater than most people, I think. And it's also the sustainable piece is quite important for us. So PV, air source, ground source, heat systems. So again, we're putting something in as far as the environmental side is concerned, which then helps with the cost for our partners. So we can find the homes. Our partners are the ones who really do all the hard work. Daniel and others might say, actually, the renovation is a bit tricky. But once we've got over the renovation issues, we want so many more places, because St. Petrox could have 4 tomorrow and fill them with the homeless. Adam could take up another one, he could fill it. So I guess Mustard Seed are different because we choose our partners very well and because we care.
Yeah, absolutely. So just turning to how the renovation of the property. Could you talk about the current state of the Alma Police Development, which is MSP's third property, and talk about who are your partners there, who will you be moving in, and when is that all due to happen?
That's imminent. We're really hoping that's going to be completed very soon. We were hit just COVID times, everything sort of cost spiraled, and it was a little trickier than we had hoped. So we'd hoped to be able to move in last year, but it's going to be this year. And that one is going to be managed by Carrick. So Ted, who I mentioned, this young man who's got profound learning difficulties, is going to be one of 5 moving into beautiful flats and bedsits. So very soon. And we hope to be able to show you wonderful pictures of these young people in situation soon.
Fantastic. Adam, have you got anything to say on that, or should I move on to the next?
No, I don't really have. I've not been very involved in that part, so I won't add anything in on that.
Okay. So, so what are the opportunities to replicate the success of the Lighthouse project in Newquay? I think that's a question for Adam.
Okay, there's one urgent need. So I'm sure that so we've been running at capacity for months and months and months in Newquay, and I'm sure that there is room for another project for men, sort of on the other side of Cornwall, if you like, maybe even 3 at some point. Right now, though, there is absolutely no provision of the kind of supported housing we provide. So, there's lots of supported housing out there, but when you're really focusing on people not just being stable, but actually turning their lives round whilst they're with us so that they can sustain long-term recoveries. There's nothing for women at all in Cornwall or Devon, nothing. There's literally one project in Plymouth, Trevi House for mothers and babies, but that's it for Cornwall and Devon. And so we really need to find a place specifically for women. And so long term, I would love to see maybe 3 lighthouses in the whole of Cornwall for men. There's less of a need for women, but right now there is an urgent need for provision for women. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Adam. So Susie, Mustard Seed property is community owned and run. I think it'd be really useful to understand, what does that really mean in terms of the benefits now and the benefits in the future.
Of course. So a community interest company, it's where the community raises the shares and put up the money, and it's for a community asset that's there permanently. Very simply. So for me, the greatest things about the Mustard Seed offer are, it's based in Cornwall. We're helping so many people in Cornwall who desperately need help. It's relatively low risk. It's asset backed by our properties. It's a reasonable return, 4% at the moment, rising to 4.5%. As I said, helping the community, it makes you feel really good. It's providing homes to people who would never have homes. And what else about community?
Well, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how the wider community is involved, and how people who are invested in the kick and the community shares, how they might get involved too. That's that sort of bigger piece of of community shares is really about sort of having a say so in how things get done in the world. Maybe talk about it from that angle.
I think it's, to be honest, because it's a fairly, if you are based in Cornwall, you only have to have £100 to be able to invest. If it's outside, I believe it's £250. It's a way actually that you're helping your community, but you're not having to get your hands too dirty. You're getting a reasonable return and it's pretty safe. But it makes you feel good because you're helping these people. People, to be honest, they don't get too involved. We are always asking our shareholders if they'd like to be put forward as directors to get involved. Yes, you can, but it's not much more involvement than that.
So you can have a direct impact, but not get your hands dirty. Is that
exactly? So it's quite easy. Please, if you've got the money, please just invest and make the world a better place.
Thank you. So Ben, turning to you, maybe you could just touch on your role and the role that residents has with Mustard Seed, and then following on from what Susie just said, talk about the risk and return elements of the community shares.
Yeah, so Residents has been actively involved since the beginning, actually, of Mustard Seed Properties' journey. Daniel Brewer, our CEO, sits on the board, and really we're there to help them grow, help them raise money, and provide services along the way so that they can do what they do best, which is, as Susie and Adam have explained really well, is providing high quality accommodation to charity partners so they can just give the people they're working with the best possible start in their future journey. In terms of the risk and return profile, you know, as we've heard, it's a really impactful model, and alongside that does generate a profit, you know, does generate profits, allowing a modest return to be provided to investors. There are 245 members now, and Mustard Seed Properties seeking to grow that, whether they're active investors, passive investors, want to get involved, or just want to put their money to work for a really good cause. We want to point out that there are ambitions to pay more interest when the model allows. So I think, as Susie said, 4 to 4.5%, that's absolutely right. 4% this year, 4.5% next year. But there is actually an ambition to then go to 5% the year after, and perhaps even a little bit more if it could be afforded in future years as those 3 houses really start to pay off. Also wanted to point out that people who have invested up until the end of February are now accruing interest. So the offer has been open for a little while, but people who have come in up to the end of February are now starting to earn interest on their shares. And we just really welcome more people now putting their money to work. And one final point on risk, which again, I think Susie alluded to, there have been some open market valuations done recently, and they're well above the amount of capital that Mustard Seed Properties raised in the form of community shares and the debt in the business. So there's real cover there. So these are real assets doing really good stuff, and they support the amount of money comfortably that Mustard Seed Property has raised.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that, Ben. Really good to understand the ambition in terms of the impact, the risk, and the return, and getting all of those things working really well together. And of course, Residence has been supporting Mustard Seed for many years, and I'm not sure if our audience knows, but Residence is quite a big player in the social finance and the social impact market. So of course, it's really good to have your kite mark, so to speak, on Mustard Seed as an organisation, and to be able to support the work that they're doing now and in the future. So Susie, whilst this model benefits the Cornwall community, do you have a vision of this being a blueprint for other community-owned housing schemes across the UK? Is that part of your ambition?
I would love other counties to be following this model. No, do I have an ambition to be involved in those? No, my ego doesn't sort of stretch quite that far. But it's about, I mean, if people have got land, it could be building these types of houses. The renovation piece, it's quite difficult when it comes to actually retrofitting sustainable solutions. So it'd be lovely with new houses. I think it's a very simple model that should be being replicated countrywide. And then we wouldn't have so many issues in terms of so many vulnerable people. I think it's a very simple, wonderful solution.
Yeah, well, the simplicity is very important, isn't it, in order to kind of make these things work? I think that's really key. That, you know, it's houses, it's looking after people, and as Adam, you were saying, it's sort of knowing your boundaries in terms of the services and the provisions that you're supplying to people, and of course, you know, making sure you've got all the right team on board.
Yeah, and it does feel like we're building really good foundations, you know, one property at a time. If you know, yeah, and it just makes such a, you know, in the real lives of the people that I'm working with, it is making such a huge difference. Yeah.
Fantastic. We need more mustard seeds. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that.
And more great partners as well. I mean, it is down to the partners who support the tenants. And I think we have a lot of those around the country.
Okay, fantastic. So we're sort of wending our way towards the end of the webinar, and it's a chance for Ben, Adam, and Susie to you know, give your own personal call to action to the audience. So fire away, Susie and Adam, and you know, let's get those investors motivated.
Okay, well, listening to Adam, every time I hear Adam talking about the success stories of the people coming through, it makes me feel really proud and really good to have invested a tiny bit and be helping a tiny bit. And for people knowing that actually it's relatively risk-free, actually you don't need to put that much in and you're going to make a massive difference, then please, yeah, do it if you can.
Yeah, and from my point of view, you know, every building that's provided, certainly for the stuff that, well, for, you know, thinking about what Alma Place does, you know, the lives of those people in there, it is their whole life being transformed. It's massive. For the people that I'm working with, not everyone makes it, but we add value to everybody's lives. And I talked about the kind of the costs that are involved. You know, everything that's invested here, not only do you make money for yourselves, but for the state, we're saving the state a lot of money. It's a very, very good investment.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks for that. Yeah. So thanks to you all guys, Susie, Adam, and Ben, to say, you know, we've successfully completed the first phase of the offer, and the offer is open until the 29th of March. And we will be sending updates and highlights of this webinar out to you, so you can see how things are progressing on our website too, at fx.org.uk. So I'd like to thank everybody once again for their time, for participating, and just remains for Susie, Adam, and Ben to say goodbye.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.